Hey there, friends. Welcome back to my little corner of calm. I hope you've got a warm drink in hand and a cozy blanket nearby, because today's story is extra gentle and heartwarming. It's a tale for everyone young or old, curious or quiet about something so special, meeting an online friend in real life. And no worries, this story is all soft smiles and happy surprises. Just the kind of comfort we all need sometimes. So let me set the scene for you. At the edge of a sleepy village where the hills rise and fall like waves and wildflowers bloom by the dozen, I lived in a small stone cottage with blue shutters and a wooden gate that creaked cheerfully whenever I came home. The garden was full of herbs, bees, and sunlight, and the neighbors were mostly birds and breeze. I liked it that way, peaceful, slow, and safe. But even in a beautiful place, you can sometimes feel a little lonely. That's why, one spring morning when the lilacs were starting to bloom and the air smelled sweet with earth and dew, I signed up for a little forum called Cozy Letters. It wasn't anything flashy, just a space where people from around the world wrote thoughtful messages to strangers, hoping to find a kindred spirit. That's how I met Ren. Her first letter was simple. "Hello from the other side of the mountains," it began. "Your post made me smile. Do you also wake up early just to hear the birds?" I remember reading it by the window with a slice of toast in hand and smiling before I even finished the message. And so, we started writing. Long, thoughtful letters that felt like sitting in a sunny kitchen talking over tea. Ren lived in a small lakeside town, where fog rolled in gently every morning and ducks lined up at her porch for breadcrumbs. She was a librarian, loved rainy afternoons, and had a black cat named Thimble, who apparently hated the postman but adored fresh laundry. Over the weeks, our messages grew richer. We shared photos not of ourselves, but of the worlds we lived in. I'd send a picture of my lavender bushes buzzing with bees. She'd send one of Thimble curled up on a pile of storybooks. Sometimes, she'd draw little sketches in the corners of her lettuce-tinny mushrooms or sleepy owls. There was no rush, no pressure, just a steady, gentle friendship, unfolding one message at a time. I'd take long walks through the woods and find myself wondering what her lake looked like at dusk. She said she often imagined what my garden smelled like in the heat of summer. It was like we were creating a bridge between two soft, quiet places. And then one day, nestled in between a note about Thimble knocking over a vase and a description of a delicious blueberry tart, Ren wrote something that made my heart flutter gently. "I know it's a big question, and I completely understand if it's too soon. But would you ever want to meet in person?" I stared at the message for a long time, the kettle whistling softly in the background. Outside, the garden rustled with the wind. My hands felt warm around the mug, and in my chest, something stirred like a sleepy bird waking up. Would I? Would you ever want to meet in person? If you've ever had an online friend who made the world feel a little warmer, you'll understand why that question meant so much. I waited a day before replying. Not because I didn't want to say yes, but because I wanted to sit with the idea, let it stretch its legs and breathe. I took long walks through the meadow, the grass brushing softly against my calves, butterflies skipping ahead of me like little lanterns. I thought about all our letters, all the drawings, all the stories. And finally, sitting on my porch with the early evening sun warming my cheeks, I wrote back, "I'd love to." Ren's reply came quickly, and with joyful surprise. "Are you sure? I know it's a bit of a leap," she wrote, "but I've already picked the perfect meeting spot halfway between us. It's called Maplewood Village. Ever heard of it?" I hadn't, but the name alone made it sound like something from a picture book. She sent a link to a little guest house tucked between a tea shop and a small bookbindery. There were flower boxes in the windows and ivy curling up the stone walls. It was run by an older couple who served fresh scones in the mornings and left handwritten notes under the door for their guests. I booked my room the same night. The day of the trip, the sky was blue and clear, as if it had been freshly scrubbed. I packed simple things books, a sweater, a jar of dried lavender from my garden as a gift. The train ride was quiet and scenic. Golden fields passed by like warm memories, and I could hear the hum of bees even through the closed windows. I watched the clouds float by and imagined Ren doing the same on her journey. When I arrived at Maplewood Station, I stepped off into the softest air. The village was wrapped in green hills and scattered with white-painted fences and sleepy cottages. Even the streets seemed to move slower here, like everything had agreed to take its time. I checked in at the guest house and was shown to a little attic room with sloped ceilings and a view of the village square. I placed the jar of lavender on the windowsill and breathed in deeply. Somewhere nearby, I imagined Wren was arriving too. We agreed to meet the next morning at a tea shop called the Honey Bell, with windows full of hanging plants and the smell of cinnamon drifting out the door. That night, I hardly slept. Not from nerves, but from anticipation. My heart felt full. I didn't expect fireworks or drama. I just hoped to feel that same peaceful warmth I always felt reading her letters. And when morning came with birds chirping, sun spilling in soft and golden, I wrapped a scarf around my neck, picked up the lavender jar, and stepped outside into the gentle hush of Maplewood Village. It was time. The Honeybell tea shop looked just as charming as Wren had described it. It was nestled at the corner of a cobbled lane, with ivy climbing around the windows and soft lace curtains fluttering in the breeze. A little bell jingled when I pushed open the door, and the scent of warm bread and honey drifted out to greet me like an old friend. Inside, it was even cozier. Wooden beams overhead, soft sunlight spilling across the tables, and shelves of teacups lining the walls like a collection of gentle smiles. There were only a few people inside, most of them reading quietly or sipping from dainty porcelain mugs. I picked a table by the window, placed my little jar of lavender in the center, and waited. And then I saw her. She stepped in quietly, just like one of her stories. A soft green cardigan, a sketchbook under one arm, and eyes that looked like they held every sunrise she'd ever described. Her hair was pulled up in a loose bun, and tucked behind her ear was a tiny, pressed flower, exactly the kind she used to doodle in the corners of her letters. Wren. She saw me, and in that moment, something sweet and unspoken passed between us. Not nerves, not awkwardness, just recognition, like meeting someone you've known in dreams. She smiled, walked over, and said, "I was hoping that was you." The lavender gave it away. We both laughed, and it wasn't a big, echoing sound. It was soft and real and perfect. She sat across from me, and just like that, we slipped into conversation like a favorite sweater, comfortable, warm, familiar. We talked about our travels, the little details our letters never captured, and how surreal it felt to sit together in real life. Thimble, it turns out, really does hate the postman. And yes, the ducks by her lake still line up for breadcrumbs every morning. She showed me her sketchbook full of illustrations inspired by our messages. One drawing showed my garden with oversized sunflowers and chickens wearing tiny scarves. Another was a dreamy map of all the places we'd mentioned in our letters. Tea Hill, Lavender Bend, Thimble's Porch. She'd named the map Friendship Valley. That afternoon turned into a slow, golden day. We visited the local bookshop, shared scones under a maple tree, and even found a hidden footpath lined with wild roses and sleepy bees. We didn't try to make it big or dramatic. We let it be what it already was: gentle, honest, and lovely. Before we parted the next day, we promised to keep writing, but now with shared memories to add to the letters. And we did. Our friendship, already rooted in kindness, grew even stronger. When I got home, I placed her sketch of Friendship Valley above my desk. And sometimes, when I write to her now, I picture us both sitting beneath the same starry sky, miles apart but gently connected, like tea and honey, like sunlight and soft rain. Thank you for joining me on this sweet little journey. If you like stories like this, subscribe to my channel for more.